Now that Trump won the elections in the US and he's going into power early next year, it might actually cause a ripple effect in the Toronto real estate market, and I think might potentially bring prices down. So stay tuned to this video to find out why.
I get it. The Toronto real estate market is confusing. Whether you're a new or experienced investor or just looking for a home to raise your family in, join us at Broadview Table Talks as you sit around the table with my friends and talk about the real estate and the ever-changing market in Toronto.
The reason why I think prices will come down a little bit is because the mortgage rates are going to go up because bond rates just went up when he got into power, and the market generally increases bond rates based on the inflation expectations. And his platform is basically to do everything pro-America, and with pro-business, pro-America, it's going to cause inflation, and with inflation the bond market is rising because of that. Now I should preface this and say that with Trump in power, like, yeah, it affects the real estate market just a little bit. It was just a hook to really get you into this video, but really, look, it's not going to make that much of a difference. Fundamentally, we're in a housing crisis in Ontario, in Toronto especially. This is why it's going to offset each other, right? So on one hand, with Trump in power, he's pro-America, he's going to be really good for business, he's going to boost the American economy, and we'll probably tag along with that as well too. But no doubt it's going to cause inflation, and with inflation, bond rates went up because really investors expect higher percentages on returns as well too. So that's going to jump up the prices, and when bond rates go up, fixed rate mortgages are based on that, right? Like fixed rate mortgages are going up, and with inflation, the central bank will probably have to combat that with higher interest rates, which also affects the variable rate mortgages. So either way, no matter what you slice it, the bank has a lot of pressure to keep the rates high. Mortgage rates are probably going to stay a little bit higher. Well, hopefully they actually do come down. There's a lot of pressure for rates to stay up, which is going to cause prices to come down, as we saw in the past 2 years. Trump's biggest platform was keeping like everything pro-America, and there's a talk of a 10% overall universal tariff on all imports to the US. And I don't know if you followed the elections or not, the US elections, but his platform was to potentially even decrease income taxes for Americans and compensate that by increasing tariffs for everything they import, which I think is a great idea because it just forces the deglobalization, and it forces all the jobs to be back in America, and all the American economy will be better because everything's produced in-house, right? It sounds good for the US, not so good for us if we import a lot of the US products, because that means their prices, because they can't get cheaper goods, like say from China or overseas or anywhere, they have to do it all within America. It means that their cost of labor is a lot higher. If their costs are higher and we import those goods that we buy from the US, then our prices are going to be higher, which causes inflation. That's not good. And then I think that a lot of capital is going to leave Canada to move towards US, because US is going to be rocking. So if investors have the choice to invest in US equities or Canadian equities, I think they're going to pick US for better returns, which means a lot of capital is going to leave Canada, which I think it might potentially bring down prices because there's gonna be less capital to build new homes and buy new homes. But like I said, all this doesn't really matter because we're in a housing crisis, and there's no easy answer to all of this. The bigger question, the bigger picture of why potentially might combat the downward pressure of prices from the US being higher is because we don't have the right protections in place for building more housing. There's no condos being built, no high-rises being built anymore, no one's buying them, the pre-sales are pretty much dead, and without the sales, there's gonna be no construction. This has already been happening for the past 2 years as well too. So I think by 2027 there's going to be a supply stop altogether, and that gives a lot of upward pressure for prices as well, at least for the condo market. Right now we're in a slump. There's a bit of oversupply. Nobody wants them. Nobody can afford them. There's going to be a lot of new supply coming onto the market for people that bought when pre-construction was kind of crazy back in 2020, 2018 or so. And they're all coming online now. So there's going to be, I think there's 35,000 units coming to the market this year in 2025. Previous years we're looking at 20,000 or even less units. So there's going to be a lot of units coming in the next 2 years anyway. But after that, it's pretty much dead. For the low rise, obviously they're not making more, at least in Toronto or the GTA. All of it is protected by the Green Belt. Rightfully so. I mean, there's reasons for that, but we're just not creating any more low rise, let alone the cost of it all. The new housing supply, if it's low rise, is generally townhouses. Maybe you'll see some singles, but there are smaller lots. It's rare to see in at least in dense urban areas, it's rare to see detached homes now. So I think that will just actually cause the fundamental supply to go up. And yes, there was recent federal announcements saying that they're going to cut immigration, probably in response to all the uprising for the cost of living and the cost of housing, because there's too many immigrants and no infrastructure, no housing, healthcare as well too. They're going to cut immigration. At least they're going to try to. But realistically, you can't just cut immigration like that. If you've ever left the country, I'm sure you have, but if you've left, you don't sign out to tell the country you're leaving. You just go, right? If you're flying from Pearson, then you'll go through border control, but that's US border control. I don't know if you know that or not. So you're checking into US, but you're not checking out of Canada. As far as I know, there's no exit controls for passports. Like if you go to another country like Hong Kong or China, you actually have to fill out a form when you leave. So That form tells the government over there, one in, one out, right? Like somebody's leaving the country. We don't have that. There's no way to know if anybody's overstayed their visas. How do we know that we're actually cutting immigration? Like, how do we know that those people that are overstayed their visas and apply for permanent residency, they're still here? I mean, even if they're here, they're consuming things. They gotta live, they gotta eat, they gotta drive, they gotta transport, they gotta clothe themselves. So that's gonna boost our economy, and those people need housing. Sure, there's less immigration on paper, but really, is it gonna affect us? I don't know. I mean, with less than 1% vacancies in Toronto, I don't know what's going to happen. Plus, on top of that, the government's set to change anytime from now till the hard stop of October. The Liberals are going to most likely lose power, and it's going to be the Conservatives. And I don't know if they're going to enforce that, because we all still need a bit of immigration. But right now, the Liberals are doing this, in my opinion, just for show. From what I'm reading about this immigration stuff, it's not like they purposely kind of screwed the country. It's just that nobody really had eyes on immigration running loose while housing wasn't ready for it or healthcare wasn't ready for it. And when it comes down to building new supply, the cost of building from land to government taxes, I'm sure you heard in the media, government taxes comprises of close to 30%, if not more, of the actual cost of housing. So if you're buying a place for, let's call it $1 million, 300,000 of that is government taxes, whether it's HST, development levies, building permits, and all the other stuff that goes into it. There's a bunch of taxes that just can't get recovered, and it gets passed to you as the end user. So, and then on top of that, then there's the land costs, which could be like anywhere from 10 to 20%. Probably a little bit more. And then there's building costs, which materials, labor, that's all high. And yes, there's going to be a shortage, but you know, as the market starts bouncing again and starts recovering and demand is there again, prices just quickly is going to escalate. Like we saw during the COVID times, a sheet of plywood was like $80 when they're normally about 30, or even less than that before COVID. The materials costs, the land costs, the labor cost, and the taxes is just not going to make the cost of building any lower. The average price per square foot of a building costs, like you can't build cheaper than $1,000 a square foot in Toronto, maybe even $1,200. So that means the end user price is going to be like, you got to sell it for $1,300, $1,400 a square foot, but there's no appetite for that right now. So that means there's no supply that's going to come on the market. Even if immigration is flat, there's still 2 decades of underbuilding. CMHC said that we need 4 million residences by 2030 for the supply to be balanced, which it never will be, because we can never build that. If we're used to building 250,000 homes in Canada, to make the 4 million homes, we need close to 600,000 units per year. We're not going to do that. It's not going to happen. So there's arguments of why Trump being in power could actually hurt the Toronto and Canadian real estate market. But in the long run, we're still at a fundamental supply-demand imbalance. In other words, too much demand, not enough supply, and that is not going to change anytime soon. There's no easy answer for that. So I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments, but I just don't think prices are going to come down anytime soon. If you actually want to chat and just have a one-on-one conversation on your situation, because every situation is different, the overall macro economy picture is perfect. Just don't make decisions on that because your situation might be different. Just click below, schedule an appointment, and let's talk. Or leave me a comment.
Add it up. Thanks for sticking out to the very end. I hope you got some value out of this. Do me a favor, please press like and subscribe, but more than anything, leave me some feedback so we know what to produce for you going forward. Thanks again.